Hi, Chris.
Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you. Thanks so much for having me today.
Um, Today's podcast is sponsored by Granite, Your Planet. Natural stone has the lowest CO2 footprint of any building material and has stood the test of time for thousands of years, far outlasting man-made alternatives. If you're passionate about ordinary structures that honor both the environment and your architectural legacy, check out stonearchitect.org. My guest today is Chris Novelli, Principal Architect of N3 Architecture in Hopedale, Massachusetts, focusing on custom residential design for people who want something different in their home. He is a graduate of Wentworth Institute of Architecture and the Boston Architectural College, and he has been a licensed architect for 25 years. Chris has a podcast, the Home Design Academy, and a YouTube channel, N3 Architecture, helping homeowners with the questions they have and showing the behind the scenes of designing custom homes. His book, The Homeowner's Guide to Residential Design and Construction Projects, takes you through the steps of designing and building a custom home, what to expect for each phase of the project. Thank you and welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Michelle. I've been a long time listener of your podcast, and it's great to be here today.
Oh, thank you.
And I guess before we get into things, what was that?
You and four other people. I said.
I was just gonna say before we get into the discussion, people should really go and check out the Granite Your Planet website. Andrew at Stone Architect, whatever his email address is. Sorry, Andrew, if I can't remember it off the top of my head. But Andrew does he does projects all around the world, right? And whether it's stone for a courtyard, or stone for a street or a sidewalk or a patio, or stone for a house, anywhere in the world he can help you, and he can probably get you that material for cheaper than your local provider. He's working with me on a custom home down in Louisiana right now, and I'm in Massachusetts, and he's in Canada, and he's going to be hopefully providing all of the stone for the facade and also for the patio for that project. So definitely contact Andrew, and he can get you some good prices and some good deals and work with you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, Andrew is part of the Architects and Allies for the Entre Architect group.
Yep. Yeah, and I think he also sponsored the musicals portion of the 2024 Entre Architect conference.
Okay, so was he there?
He was there. Yeah, he was there.
Okay.
He's very tall.
Okay.
Very tall, much taller than you would.
That's funny. Well, because on Zoom we look shorter. I'm taller than people actually know also. And then Sarah, who I've been on her podcast before, when we met in person at the AIA conference in San Francisco a couple of years ago, we were kind of laughing because we're both tall. I didn't think that she was as tall as me. I'm an inch shorter than I used to be 5'8", now I'm 5'7", which I guess is tall for a woman. I don't really think that it's that tall, but
tall enough.
Tall enough. I hate to. So, Chris, what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
So I guess the very first time that I can remember noticing architecture, I was probably around 8 years old, and I grew up in a suburb in Massachusetts, about hour and a half outside of Boston. And in my town and in the towns around me, you had, Cape Cod style houses, ranch houses, colonial houses, some historical houses in the town centers, and maybe every once in a while a Victorian house, but nothing really too exciting. And then, but there was this one house in my town that I would drive by. Well, I wasn't driving. I was like 8 years old, but I was in the back seat, and I would note, and I paid attention to it because it was different than everything else. I mean, it wasn't anything special. It kind of looked like a Sea Ranch knockoff, a budget Sea Ranch in suburban Massachusetts, but it was different than
Woody
everything
goody.
else. What's that?
A woody goody, we call
Yeah,
them.
yeah. It had
Yeah,
the wood cladding on a diagonal. It's like, whoa, look at that.
of course. Yeah.
And so, but I that was the first time I can ever remember noticing something architectural related that was different than I had seen. And so, about the same time, I also had a pretty decent sized bedroom for a child. I mean, it wasn't anything huge, maybe 11 by 16 or so, 12 by 16, about that size.
Huh.
But for a young kid, it was pretty big. And what I actually would do, Michelle, my mom had one of those fold out yardsticks for sewing, right? And it like
Oh
fold it
yeah. Yeah.
and kind of
Yeah.
snap together. And so I
Yeah.
grabbed that and I measured the room, and I measured all of my furniture, which is, a bed, a desk, a dresser, and a chair.
Yeah.
And then on graph paper, without knowing what an architect was or what or how to draw to scale or anything like that. I was less than 10 years old. I made a two scale plan of my room, and then I made two scale versions of the furniture and cut them out, and I would arrange them around the paper, and I would rearrange my room probably monthly. And I tried just about every combination. Not knowing what an architect was, I had no architects in my family, no engineers, no people in my family in the trades. I knew nothing about it. I just somehow
Uh-huh.
was always interested in experimenting on how I could arrange that room differently, even if it wasn't a good layout. I still tried it. There was one time I think I put all the furniture in the center of the room and just kind of like you had to like walk around, stuff like that.
So and you actually moved all of your furniture like that?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
what's funny is my daughter, my youngest daughter, rearranges her room all the time, and it kind of drives me nuts. But
Funny.
but I
It's
can't
funny.
I can't say anything because I did the same thing, right?
I mean, because I like it's a big deal for me to move furniture around. Like I don't think
Hmm.
I think I've changed. I've lived in this house for, yeah, we bought it in October of 99. And I think I've rearranged, I think I've moved the bed twice in my bedroom
Yeah.
since then. Like I've never really, there's only, I mean, I don't know, really, I only think that there's like two places because one wall has the opening that goes into the bathroom and the closet. So it's like it's not short, it's not long enough to put the bed on that wall. And then the
Hmm.
other wall, I mean, I probably should put it there because there's this thing about like like the axe murder. Did you ever hear
Oh yeah.
Bob? Yes, the
Bob
axe murder
Borson's, yeah,
one.
but
Yes, yes,
the
exactly.
hatchet
I wasn't
bedroom.
going to use his name because I thought maybe there's somebody else that uses that, but no.
No, that's
But
that's where
yeah,
I heard it from.
yeah, he'll talk about it all the time, and I'm like, yeah, like you would really get up, you'd really be able to get up and like do anything if there was an axe murder. They're like way too fast, I think. But anyway, it doesn't
So
really matter where the room. Where
yeah, if Bob is a listener of your podcast, well, we can just know Bob, like that blog post that you wrote in I don't know when, early 2000s, that changed my life. Every time I design a bedroom now, every time I think of the hatchet
Yes,
bedroom piece.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be thrilled to death if he does listen to my pod. I don't think he listens to mine very often. Yeah, yeah. He does know me and does say stuff like that. But he hasn't talked to me in like, I don't know, 3 years or something, maybe possibly 4. Um,
And then
so
from there
so
though, so from there, the next sort of step in architecture for me was
uh-huh.
when I was a child. We had a pretty big street, and of course, there's no cell phones or computers back then, so everyone actually was outside riding their bikes around the neighborhood and spending time
Yeah,
with each other. And
yeah,
going into high school, there was a group of kids that were a little older than me, and me and my friends were hanging out on the street, riding our bikes around, and one of these older guys comes over and said, "Hey, you guys are going into your freshman year of high school. You'll have an elective class. You got to take mechanical drafting. It's the easiest A you'll ever get." And so I'm like, okay, sure, that sounds awesome. So me and my buddy, we signed up for mechanical drafting for our elective class, and we show up the first day. They had the big drafting boards, and we're just kind of sitting there. And after a couple minutes, the woodshop teacher walks in, covered in sawdust and everything.
Oh yeah.
He
Yeah.
he comes over, opens up this locked cabinet where all the drafting supplies were.
Yeah.
Turns around, he's like, "Books are over there. Open up the book and draw something. The tools are in there." He grabs a bottle of whiskey out of the cabinet, splashes into his coffee, turns on the radio, kicks his feet up on the desk, and shuts his eyes and takes a nap. And so that was introduction to mechanical drafting, and I took that for 2 years, and it was great. It was it was he didn't teach us anything, but the books had some drafting sort of tutorials, and then a bunch of machinery equipment pieces to draw.
Yeah.
And we basically had to teach ourselves, but the only provided mechanical drafting 1 and 2. So when it came to our junior year of high school, we're like, we want to keep the party going, so we switched over to architectural drafting, and it was the same thing. Same woodshop teacher pouring the whiskey into his coffee and taking a nap. But this time we had no references. He just said, "Draw me a house." And so we would just kind of make up houses. And I would actually went to the bookstore and would find, like, look at magazines and then take it back to the architectural drafting class and draw up the houses and use those for my designs, which were amazing. Of course. And then,
do you have some? Do you have any?
No,
I've looked at some.
I don't think I have them anymore.
I was like, what was I thinking? Like, for some of this stuff, I'm like, it's like this. I mean, nothing is glaring. I mean, I definitely isn't as bad as some of the students that I've seen that I've sat in grits for. I had a better idea of like spatial relationships, but yeah.
Maybe my mom has some copies of them somewhere in her basement or something like that, but I don't have any. But I really like the architectural drafting so much more than the mechanical drafting. So in my senior year of high school, I went up to my guidance counselor. I said, "Hey, listen, I really like this. I think I might want to go to school for architecture." And this guidance counselor, Michelle, she laughed in my face. Like,
because of your math?
And absolutely. Well, I had a couple of, my junior year, I spent more time, going to parties than studying. And so, there was a couple of classes that I didn't get the best grades in, but she just like laughed. It wasn't just like a chuckle. It was like a gut laugh. She was like almost falling down. And that kind of like lit a fire under me, though, because if you tell me that I can't do something, I'm going to try twice as hard to prove you wrong. So she actually recommended that I go to the local community college and study criminal justice, and then maybe get like a civil servant job or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm gonna go
justice.
I don't know. I think that was her default answer for everyone. And so I just kind of like, defiantly just brushed her off and said, no, I'm gonna apply to architecture schools in Boston, and I'm going to move to Boston, and that's when I went to Wentworth, and it was I haven't looked back since.
Did you go to community college though, or not?
No. I went right to Wentworth.
You never went. Yeah.
No.
I can remember they told me during my guidance, like during, I don't know, it was probably, I think I'd said in 11th grade, and then in 12th grade, she brought me in at the beginning of the year, and she was kind of like, "Oh, what do you want to be?" And I'm like, "Oh, I want to go to architecture school." And then she like told me all the reasons why I couldn't go. Well, you don't have enough math. You don't have that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, it doesn't really matter. I said, because I'm moving, my mom and stepdad had already moved to California. And I'd already applied actually to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And they had turned me down because we weren't residents of California yet, and it was an impacted program. But there was a person that my parents went to church with, And they said, well, she can go to community college here and then just transfer to Cal Poly Pomona. And at the time, I mean, community college was like so cheap. It's like $50 or something, and all your classes
Oh
are
wow.
free. Yeah,
Yeah.
you only had to pay. Yeah, yeah. And then you could transfer. And then when I went to Cal Poly Pomona, it was like $221 a quarter. So everybody thinks, and I went to Cal Poly Pomona. I had applied to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, but I'd never gone to San Luis Obispo until
Okay.
I moved out to California. And then when I was going to apply to schools in my second year of community college, actually went up to San Luis Obispo, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to live here. This is like out in the middle of nowhere. And so I went to Cal Poly Pomona.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, applied there. So yeah, yeah. So
So
that was your journey then, and then you got then because those were your first recollections, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We
And
had,
then
I mean, our guy wasn't a drunk, but it was, I think in the eighth grade, we did have, because, Chris, I'm like so old that it was basically, it's like they changed the law that said that women had to be admitted to the class because it was shop class and then it was home ec. And we
yep.
could only, so in seventh grade, I took home ec. And then in eighth grade, they changed the law. They actually didn't change the law. They had actually changed the law like 3 years before, but they didn't implement it in our school district until 1978. So it was changed in 1975.
Yeah.
They didn't implement it until 1977. Yeah, because it was so 78 was like the end of the year. But yeah, so I took drafting in that one. And the funny thing is that like both my dad and my stepdad had both, my real dad had worked for an architect in Pittsburgh. My stepdad designed printing presses, so he did it. But they never, like, I saw some of their drawings when I would go to work, but they never like said, oh yeah, here's how you draft. But then I did go, to class, and then I went to technical school in 11th and 12th grade. And so I was doing all the stuff, but I don't remember them ever giving me any like pointers or anything.
Oh, really?
Right. Because I was always, no. And I mean, I think that there was probably, I just had like a natural talent. And my grandfather on my dad's side, he was an engineer and built his own, built houses. And my uncle, my dad was kind of in construction after that. And then my uncle was a kitchen designer. In fact, he'd only retired like a few years ago, but so it was kind of like always in the thing. And my mom is like my mom's very creative, but she didn't really go into anything but anyway, what do your parents do then?
Well, my dad, so my dad was an accountant when I was young, and then, but he got sort of like mixed up in a bad recession where he got laid off. And then by the time that the economy sort of turned around, everyone was sort of gone from doing accounting by hands to accounting by computers. And he was sort of left behind. So he kind of bounced around. He actually ended up as a surveyor for a while. And so he actually, for many years traveled the country surveying through farmland and forested areas, like for doing surveys for gas pipelines. And so he was doing that for a long time. And my mom, she was a teacher, and what was funny is my mom taught in the same school district as that guidance counselor. Then she had to they weren't in the same school because my mom taught elementary school, but they had to interact every once in a while, and she would always make sure to say like, oh yeah, Chris graduated college, oh yeah, Chris is working in an architecture firm. Always make sure to like give a little a little nudge there to show her that she was wrong.
Well, it's weird because I think I mean, there are probably more people out there that, that wanted to be an architect and then didn't, make it or whatever. I mean, I know the valedictorian of our high school class, he wanted to be an architect. And then when I went back for the 20th reunion, one of the guys was like, oh, so-and-so, I mean, he's a genetic engineer, da, da, da. And I'm like, yeah, but he wanted to be an architect. And I said, it says right here, because they had this whole list. I was just telling somebody at church that they had this whole list of what we were going to do, like all the people that were graduating and then what they wanted to do. And then I wanted to be an architect. And I was going to move to California and be, and go to architecture school and become an architect and have my own practice. And then when I went back for the 20th reunion, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I live in California and I have my own art, I'm an architect and I have my own practice." And they're like, "Oh, you did exactly what you said you were going to do." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." Like, was that strange? Like, yeah, that's what I said I was going to do. It's just the way. Maybe it wasn't. I mean, I didn't even, who knows?
I think a lot
Yeah.
of people give up on things too quickly and maybe, switch careers and switch what they're interested in. But, it's nice that you were able to outline that and then actually follow through with it.
Well, and this guy had been in this drafting class, but he didn't. He was smart, but I don't think he's like architecture smart, but just as far as like the personality or anything. And then this other guy, like I said, was like saying, "Oh, well, so and so is a genetic engineer," and I'm like, "Yeah, who cares? I don't care. I didn't want to be a genetic engineer." It's like, who cares if he's a genetic engineer? I didn't want to be a genetic engineer. I wanted to be an architect. And I am an architect. So
Yep.
Yeah, that's the point. So what 3 classic buildings do you like and why?
So
When I say, yeah, at least you'll
I
know,
got you.
right? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, classical."
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
no.
but you've listened to the podcast before, and this is how I know, Chris.
Yep, yep. So I thought that since AIA conference isn't going to be in Boston this year, that I would keep the 3 buildings Boston centric, just in case anyone who's listening to this podcast is going to be coming to coming to Boston for the first time. Maybe here's 3 buildings that you can go and visit. So the first one, and I intentionally picked public buildings too.
Okay.
So the first one is the MIT Chapel by Eero Saarinen. And
Okay.
so this building, it is a tiny little chapel on the campus of MIT. And when I was a freshman in college, we were given a list of buildings around the city that we should go and visit. And there was one day where I wanted to go check out some of these buildings, and my roommate didn't really want to, so I kind of just went out and kind of trudged around by myself. And the chapel was the last one on my list of one buildings that I was going to visit for that day. So I'd been walking around all day, and I was pretty tired. And if for those who don't know, that the chapel, it's a tiny little brick cylinder building that's kind of surrounded by a moat, I guess, right? Surrounded
Mhm.
by water, and there's no windows in the building except for sort of inset from the exterior wall at the base of the structure. And so when you walk in, not well, the outside it's a perfect cylinder, but on the inside the walls are kind of like undulating, right? And the light bounces off the water and then up. So the light is coming from the floor behind these sort of half walls. And you can actually go over and look over and you can see the water down there. And it just creates this amazing effect on the walls. And then there's this one little skylight in kind of like in the one side of the chapel, and
Oh,
that shines light down on this metal sort of sculpture that's kind of like fluttering around. And it's just an amazing space. And I remember the very first time that I visited it, which would have been in 1996, and I just walked in there. I was by myself. It's a dark space. It's a quiet space. And I'm not a religious person or anything like that, but I just sat down, and maybe it was because I was so tired from walking around all day, but it just like moved me. And I was like, this is what I want to do right here.
uh-huh.
And I
Yeah.
just sat there for a long time, and I go and visit it, every chance I get. It's a great building to go and see. The next one is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, which is built in 1903, I believe. It's a Venetian style building. It's kind of in the back bay. Well, it's kind of in the Fens area, not really in the back bay, but it's right next to Wentworth. Like my
Okay.
dormitory was right across the street from the Gardner Museum. And from the outside, it's nothing too spectacular, but when you walk inside, that's where the magic happens. It has this amazing interior courtyard garden surrounded by this colonnade that goes around all four sides, and it's just the entire roof is a skylight, and it
Huh.
just floods light down into this courtyard garden. And it's just a tropical environment, and it just blows you away the first time you see it. And it's just an amazing space to be in. And then also in I think the mid 2000, maybe 2010, around there, Renzo Piano did an addition to the building as well. And the Renzo addition is fantastic. I mean, Renzo's one of my favorite architects
Huh.
anyways. And this is one of, out of all the Renzo buildings I've been into, this is one of the nicest, one of the nicer ones. And it's just if you go and visit the Gardner Museum, obviously you got to go and check out the interior courtyard, but you also have to walk around, sort of all four sides. You got to walk around the block to experience the Renzo edition from all sides, because it's really nice.
And who did the original building?
Oh, I do not know who did the original
Okay.
building. I probably should, but I
That's okay. You
I
can just
think
send it to me so I can put it in the blog. That's why. That's right.
yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
I can just look it up on the internet.
I mean, I'll also, like, I don't know the exact history, but I think the Gardner Museum it's the location of the largest art heist in US history,
Oh,
I
really?
believe. Yeah, and it was in the early 90s. There was, I think, like 15 paintings stolen. And it's an unsolved. Those paintings have never resurfaced, and they've never
Oh,
figured out.
really?
Yeah, um so definitely go to the Garden Museum. I mean, the artwork is fine, but go there for the courtyard, and go there for to check out the Renzo building as well.
Okay.
And then the third one, I didn't choose one singular building, but a grouping of buildings, and that is the buildings around Copley Square, and that includes the Boston Public Library, which is a McKim Mead and White, from 1895, I believe, 1895, 1900, somewhere around there. There's also a Philip Johnson edition on the back of it. Don't even bother going with the Philip Johnson edition. I mean, it's fine, but you know, if you're gonna go visit the Boston Public Library, enter through the McKim Mead and White original structure. Go
Oh,
through the reading rooms there with the giant domed coffer ceiling. That's you know, forget about it. Don't even waste your time with the Philip Johnson.
okay.
Right across the street from the BPL is Trinity Church, by Henry Hobson Richardson,
Hmm.
and I think that Trinity Church might be Richardson's, in my opinion, probably his best building.
Hmm.
It's an amazing, like, amazingly detailed church. And then right next to the church is the John Hancock Tower, which was built in the 70s. Henry Cobb was the architect, but he was working for I.M. Pei at the time.
Hmm.
And the John Hancock Tower is just this glass monolith, but it's a parallelogram form. And what's
Hmm.
really cool about the John Hancock Tower is when you're in different areas of the city, and even like outside of the city, like even when you're driving into Boston, where depending on which angle you're looking at the building, it changes. It feels like it changes shape, right? One view, feels skinny and tall. Another view, it looks fat and chunky, and it's just kind of like this really cool building. But what I really like is, since it's right next to Trinity Church, is there's this amazing experience where you look, and all the it's a glass mirrored building, so it looks like a
Oh,
giant
yeah.
mirror. So you stand at the base of the Hancock Tower, and you see the reflection of Trinity Church, and it's just a great sort of, like, you know dichotomy between this
Yeah.
old and this new. And that's, I think, when you think of Boston, that's kind of like what the entire city is. It's this mix of old and new, and that's really had a big impact on me as an architect and how I
Hmm.
approach my projects. And
Isn't
so
that on the cover of one of the of like a history book, of an
it
architecture
might be
history book,
it might be
modern architecture?
yeah, I don't know. But
Yeah.
also, just to sort of close out Copley Square,
Mhm.
you have the Old South Church, which is on the corner, which is a Gothic cathedral. You have a mix of these 4 to 5 story tall, brick buildings that has shops and restaurants and offices and apartments. And you're 1 block away from Newberry Street, where Newberry Street is like a great spot to walk down and with shops and restaurants. And just
Uh-huh.
sort of like as a whole, that Copley Square is just one of the best spots in Boston. So, if you're visiting Boston for the first time for AIA 25, go to the MIT Chapel, go to the Gardner Museum, go to Copley Square. Those will be 3 good ones, and you can see me for a list of 20 others that you, you can visit.
Yeah.
Like there's the Carpenter Center, right? Which is the only I think it's the only Le Corbusier building in the United States. Um, it's not that great, but you can go and see it. That's on the campus of Harvard, so that's another good one. One thing that's cool
Oh,
about the
I
carp,
was there. I did go there.
yeah.
I went for Ecclestock. That was my first and only time in Boston. And
Oh,
then,
okay.
and then everybody's like, "Oh, well, why don't you come back here?" And I said, "No, I'll probably never come here again." And they're like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, "Well, it took me like 56 years or whatever to get here the first
I
day. So
know.
another 56 is like."
Yeah. You
I
never
said
know.
I want to go and see other things, but I mean, I do. I mean, I like it there, and I probably even have a place to stay. But yeah, yeah, I did like it. But we walked around Harvard,
Hmm.
and then what's across from the Carpenter Center, a more traditional building, right?
Oh, I'm not sure off the top of my head. Um, I know Harvard's the GSD, the Graduate School of Design, is around the
Yes,
corner.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
But the Carpenter Center is kind of cool with the ramp that kind of serpentines up and through the building and back down the other side. I've never actually been inside the Carpenter Center. I don't know if the public can get in there, but you can
Okay.
certainly walk up the ramp and kind of through like the middle of the building. You're still outside, but you can still see it. But
Yeah, yeah.
I would say go visit those other three first before that.
Okay. Yeah, I did walk through Harvard. And like saw some other things because and it was kind of funny because one of my friends kids was going to Harvard and she had never been on the campus with him like the whole time that he'd been there, but he like never asked her to come. And then I said like, "Oh, I want to go, I want to go and see the campus." And she's like, "Oh, this is the first time that I've been here while he's gone to school here."
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's never invited me. He wasn't living on the campus, but he was told us that like he would take us on a little tour. I saw the JFK or yeah, the JFK dorm, like where JFK's dorm was when
Oh, okay.
it's now
Yep.
like part of the elevator tower or something like that inside the building,
Yeah.
inside the dorm room. His dorms. I did see that from the outside, not the inside. And then I think we went into the library there.
Yeah, there's lots of cool places around that campus.
Yeah.
The Harvard campus and the MIT campus are both really nice. Like you walk through the MIT campus and there's lots of cool buildings there as well.
I'm like, so, like you're bringing up, and I'm like, why did we not go to MIT? Because her husband had actually graduated from MIT. I don't know
Hmm.
why we didn't go to MIT because that Albert Alto dorm, right? I would have liked to see that. I would have liked to see the chapel. There were a lot of things there.
Yeah,
I don't know, Chris. Maybe I'll make a flyby or something like that.
there's another Saarinen building right next to the chapel. There's the auditorium. There's a Stephen Hole building. He did a dormitory building there that was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
There's a Frank
Yeah.
Gehry building. There's
Yes, my friend worked on the Frank Gehry building.
oh
Yeah.
really?
He was working for who's the big engineering firm?
Um, Stantec? Not Stan.
No, like the international one, like the one that I think the one that did the Sydney Opera House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my likes right. It's the one that is kind of like it's older and well known and done all these things. I forget what the name of it is, but
Yeah.
I will put it in the blog or the show notes when I look it up.
Okay.
So what would you like to say about the future? Or no, I'm sorry. What do you like about being an architect?
Okay, so I think that the best thing about being an architect is that every day is different, right? And I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but one day you get to
No, but
be,
it's fine.
yeah.
Somebody just like I just like met with somebody because they were thinking they're trying to figure out what they want to do. They already have one degree, but they're trying to figure out what they want to do. And so she was looking at all of these different careers and like that was like one of the things that I told her. I'm like, yeah, every day is different,
Hmm. Yeah, well, I
So
mean,
yeah.
one day you get to do something creative and artistic, and maybe the next day you're doing something that's precise and calculated, and the day after that you're out on the job site, and
Mhm.
you get to meet like a lot of different people and get to know them. So that's always pretty cool. But one of the things that I think that has made a big difference in my perception of that every day is different sort of mentality is becoming a business owner, right? When
Yeah.
you're an employee, sure, every day is different, but you're still kind of chained to the desk, right?
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
to do kind of like what has to get done. But when you start your own firm, I mean, man, you can really do whatever you want. If I'm working like if I'm working on a wall section and I'm just not feeling it, I can just drop it and go and sketch for a little while and sketch out some concepts on another project. Or if I'm trying to work on a design and the designs aren't flowing, I can just, drop that and do some billing or something like that.
Mhm.
Or if I feel
Yeah.
like writing something, I can do some marketing. And so like once you're a firm owner, like the everyday is different sort of mentality just, expands, and you really have all these possibilities because you have no one telling you what to do. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling my son, I mean, of course, we used to say like, go drawing toilet partitions, right? That's like what you do at the beginning of your, of your career, or and and so kind of like what I was telling this person is that they should really go like they have like a lot of marketing experience, and I said, well, you could go into an architect's office probably right now, and they could have
Yeah.
you do that stuff at least part time, and then you can kind of
Hmm.
see whether you want to work for an architect because you'll be able to you know, do marketing for them, but you'll be able to see like what everybody else is doing that is, the architect. And I mean, if you enjoy architecture, maybe you just want to be their business development person. You don't, not go to architecture school,
Exactly. Yeah.
in
There's
order.
there's lots
Yeah.
of there's lots of roles in an architecture firm where you don't have to be an architect, right?
Mhm.
I kind of laughed when you mentioned the toilet partitions because early on in my career, I worked on a project that was a new YMCA in Wilbraham, Massachusetts, and I was in charge of designing the toilets and toilet rooms and locker rooms and toilet partitions. So I did that, what was funny is when my that building was built before I was married, but then when I got married and had kids, we actually took our kids to that same building for swim lessons. And I told my kids hey, I designed this locker room and this bathroom. And to this day, my son, that's like his like he'll say like, "Oh yeah, that's the building you designed the bathrooms from." Like, you know what? Why don't you remember any of the nicer buildings? You remember that one?
How old is he?
Oh, my son, he's about to turn 17 now, but Um, he still likes to point it out. Like if we don't drive by there very often anymore, but when we do, he's like, "Oh, that's the building you did the bathrooms for, right?" I was like, "Yep."
Well, I think when they're kind of like the bigger buildings that they've done. Like I haven't worked on that many. Like there was one There was one that was like a multifamily, right? I did
Hmm.
multifamily at the beginning. Like when I first started out working for an architect, I was like 19 years old, and it was for this guy who didn't he wasn't a good designer, and he didn't really care. And so he had me like designing things like when I was like 19 or 20, like, oh yeah, figure out this, recreation room or whatever in multifamily. But we
Yeah.
were doing this we are doing this post-tension slab like apartment complex, which to me it doesn't. I mean, it must be that like between the developer and the architect and the engineer that they just decided that they wanted to do a post-tension building, because
Yeah.
for me it just doesn't seem like it's very like it would have made much sense, for where it was. I mean, it's close to the beach and everything, but there really
Hmm.
wasn't. I mean, maybe there was like something in the thing where I don't know, where we had to have more of like a clear span or something. And then we had to,
Maybe. Yeah.
so it's, I don't think I ever saw it when it was first built, but I could, when we moved back here, uh, like several years ago, I like drove, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's that building. And it's at the end of the freeway and it's kind of there. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like I worked on that building. And so like my kids will say, like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
that building that you worked at. But like all these other homes and everything else. And I mean, you know, it's like, or that one in the Valentine's Day movie, my
Oh, yep.
daughter saw, yeah, she saw that movie and then she was like, oh, I think that you would like to see this movie because of Venice and all of the things. And then it turned out that it's like, oh, I said, yeah, that's my project, And I mean,
Yeah.
I really
Nice.
just kind of did a facelift of it a couple times because
Uh-huh.
they had designed it in the 70s. And then I just like remodeled it once. And then they had me come back because they wanted to add a bathroom on the outside. And so I remodeled it again. Um, but yeah, I'm like, yeah, you were in it when you were like 3 years old, you know?
Did you know that house was in the movie, or did you?
She's the one that told me, like, oh,
Oh,
you
no
should
kidding.
watch this movie because there's like I think it was like the architecture because it's in Venice Beach
Yep.
because she had lived in Venice Beach and we had lived in Venice Beach for like
Mhm.
10 years. We lived in Venice Beach. And so when she was born, like we lived in a little vacation bungalow. And then the same thing with her brother, that's where they were, that's where they were born,
Yeah.
and so they kind of remember it. And she's like gone back there since. But when she saw that movie, she told me she had no idea. I mean, probably somewhere in her head she did know that, but when she
Maybe.
saw it, I mean, she just wanted to see that movie because she liked that Tyler Lautner
Yeah.
or Taylor Lautner,
Yeah.
right? Because it was Taylor Swift and Taylor Lautner in that movie, and so yeah, yeah. So she just wanted to see Taylor Lautner, and then I like watched the movie, and I was like, "What? I like that's my project," and
That's
I
your
never
project.
knew
Yeah.
because the owners didn't. It's like I had just, I'd moved like right that was done like a few years before we moved down here. So I didn't tell the owners where I was moving or anything. I just
Got to start putting that into the clauses of our contracts. Like, if this house is ever used in a movie, let us know.
yeah, that's actually a pretty good one. Maybe we should probably get some type of I'm sure that they made, they got a lot of I have another one, like one of my first projects. It's around where Jessica was. I think I showed it. I think I put it in Onto Architect or whatever, but it was in some like cheesy TV movie. The original house, not the house that I built, but the original
Oh,
house
okay.
was used. And then that was kind of when I was telling you on the crits. Chris has like a crits um session on Friday mornings if anybody wants to join Onto Architect and log into these crit sessions because they're really nice.
Yeah, they're
Um,
fan. So it's really about that. Kind of like got born from me talking with Mark about. There was a podcast episode. There was an Entree Architect podcast episode, and the guest that he was interviewing was talking about how during COVID they missed being able to, bounce ideas off of each other in the office. And so I had emailed Mark and I said, "Hey, what about us sole practitioners? We don't ever get that. We should set
yeah,
something
yeah,
up where we could help each other out." And Mark's like, "Okay, do it." So and so we
yeah,
started. So we set up this. Yeah, it's Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and anyone can go to the Entree Architect Facebook page and then join us. And if you're a sole practitioner, you can get some help on your projects, and or if you want to help others on their projects, it's a fantastic time.
yeah. Or
It's a
even
lot
if
of
you
fun
don't
too.
have a project, just log in just to
Yeah,
kind of like like see it. I think it's always. I think it's real. I mean, I think it's really good. I think it's good to have that feedback and. You can
yeah.
draw on other people's projects, which I don't know about that, but I don't know about that part. But
Oh, that's part of the fun. We get to
I
just
think
throw
if
out
there
all the
was,
ideas, but we don't ever have to make it work.
I think if it was more, because if there's not the precision with the drawing that it
Yeah.
would be, I mean, like sometimes when, like when what we should have done is like like I had these professors, some of them were pretty well known. I should have just kept their sketches, like had them sign it, and then like I could have a whole book of sketches of like trace
Oh yeah.
sketches from like these different professors that I had. But yeah, I'm sure I
That's a
just
great
like
that's a great thought. Maybe I should take screenshots of everyone's Zoom sketches and then we can put together a book in a couple years.
not as pretty as drawing, like
Oh,
drawing
definitely
on.
not.
Yeah,
No.
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's why I'm like, I don't know about that. It's like something so much prettier about like trace with like the thing over. Yeah, but I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe they'll improve that because we're giving people ideas. I don't think IT people ever listen to this though, but
No.
I think definitely we should be designing our own software. But
So Morpholio needs to like come up with something where we can all just like share, not just share the screen, but like share the same like Morpholio session. We can each like lay a piece of
yes.
trace paper down
Yeah.
digitally and
Yeah.
sketch over
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. 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 No, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Um, yeah. So what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
So I'm having this conversation with my son a lot lately because he's going into he's not going into architecture, but he wants to go to college for 3D animation, and the real discussion is how much is AI going to take over that profession, and there's a lot of architects thinking the same thing, and um, I really think that AI is a great tool, but I don't think it's ever going to take sort of like the human interaction out of it.
Mhm.
And so, I think if you can't talk to people or connect with people or understand what their needs are, I think that no matter what tool you have at your disposal, you're not going to sort of have the success that you would if you're able to have that sort of human connection. So I think that, and I think you can even spin it in a way where if you essentially take an AI or take any sort of advancement in technology, it's supposed to save us
Mhm.
time, right? Okay, so what are you going to do with that saved time? Can you use that time to connect more with people on a deeper level? And so I think that um, getting away from sort of superficial sort of design and getting into stuff that has this sort of deeper connection, there's a potential there. Um,
Mhm.
so I'd like to see more of that, whether that's going to happen or not. That's another thing. But I do see. I mean, a lot of my clients recently. I mean, over the past couple of years, I see them rejecting sort of these oversized homes, and I see I see homeowners at least having more of a knowledge on building science and rejecting synthetic materials and sort of asking at least even up front like hey, can we have natural materials in this building rather than
Ah,
synthetic materials? So it's
yeah.
it's really interesting that homeowners are sort of catching on to sort of those building science things, even in terms of having a more efficient building envelope, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
conversation that homeowners are coming to me with from the start, where
Mhm.
rather than not even really knowing anything about it. So I think those human connections and connecting with people and designing something that's going to be meaningful for them at the same time as like not overbuilding and sort of you know getting back to using more natural materials rather than synthetic materials. I think that would be a great future of architecture in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh and I know we moved from one house to another house because, the energy costs, like it was just
Hmm.
so high. And my mom was like a single mom, at that point. And she's like, yeah, we're just gonna move, because I think that the utility costs probably more than what every month were probably more than what the mortgage was or something like
Yeah.
that. And so we moved to a smaller house and then moved to we went back and moved to like a big. I think that the third house that we had there, I think was a little. It was bigger than the second house. Um, but I think definitely when you're talking about like energy costs or sustainability and kind of reduce reuse. Um,
I mean, energy costs aren't going
yeah.
to go down, right? They're not they're not going to go down. So, you know,
No,
build a house
no,
that
especially
would
I
be more
know.
efficient, right? Is your only
Yeah,
sort of option.
yeah, yeah. Or I even tell people, right, like we have, we have solar, right?
Mhm.
But, we have to or we don't have solar in my house. I'm just saying in California. So we're like the biggest supplier of solar energy, but all of our energy goes back onto the grid. And then
Yep.
we have to buy our energy back from the grid,
Oh, really?
so,
Yeah.
yeah, which is crazy, because we're the biggest supplier. So, what we're talking about now about, batteries. Like I've been telling people for like years now, several years now, like, yeah, buy the battery. If you're going to do solar, then buy the
Hmm.
battery because then you can store it on the thing. You don't have to put it back onto the grid and then buy it back. And, even if you have to, buy the solar panels or like, but, there's a lot of great deals out there, but, um, definitely get the batteries to hold on to it so that you don't have to do that.
Yeah. One of my current clients, I've been working with them for several years, and their house is under construction. And the husband, they're both engineers,
Mhm.
but the husband's job is generating power in space. That's his job. And so he's like, yeah, it was funny watching him talk, listening to him talk to the solar people, because it's like listening to a scientist explain or explain an experiment to a group of kindergartners, right? It's like the solar people are like, oh, you can do this, and the guy, my client's like, no, 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 this is the way it's going to be. But anyways, like the sort of long story short on that is, he's gonna build his own storage solution where
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
project is done, he's gonna run a conduit out, and he's gonna build a structure out back that's gonna um be his own battery powered design, I guess.
Well, I mean, and especially like the utility companies, people are like, "Oh, well, why is the utility not going if they have more?" I'm like, "No, why should they? I mean, they still have
Yep.
the infrastructure, So if you're having to put your stuff back onto the grid and then get back, I said, then they still own the infrastructure. It doesn't matter whether you have
Yep.
like a community, you know, um, community network where you're buying the energy from or whatever, but all the infrastructure is still owned by the utility companies, and and now like people are getting the batteries, right, and they're storing it, and then they're downloading they're downloading the energy onto the batteries during the low times, and then using it whenever they want to, because
Hmm.
especially if they've got, but like the people around I'm pretty sure it's the people that were ones, like a couple weeks ago, the power went out in the middle of the night. Totally went out. I mean, it was probably like at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. The power went out like all around us. It went out.
Wow.
Then, then at like midnight, I see like these lights that are shining into my side yard, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And then I looked, and they were up on the power pole, right? Like, so I was getting a text message that said that they didn't know like what was wrong and they were trying to figure it out or something. So I think it was our neighbors that have like 2 or 3 electric cars. I think they're the ones.
Oh no.
So they were up on the power pole, like trying to do this stuff. But I'm sure that it was because they probably also have batteries and they're down, they're like getting as much power as they can at one time
Yep.
so that they can charge so that they can charge their cars at night. It was like, but they were maxing it out and just like put every, down, and then yeah.
Oh,
So there are limits to that.
yep.
So you should
Definitely.
you should see what the limits are first, because we have these houses that, I mean, like 50, like we have 50 amp, like the original houses are all like 50
Oh,
amp panels. So
wow.
everybody, yeah. And so I just upgraded probably a year and a half ago. I upgraded it to 250 amp panel, which supposedly is is supposed to be able to accommodate an electric car,
Hmm.
but we trip the panel all the time. So
Yeah.
I think it's and then I talked to the person at the building department. She goes, "Oh yeah, it's because it's old. You got your old 50s stuff, and then you've got your new stuff." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to switch everything out right now. We'll just go with this
Yeah.
this antiquated hybrid system." And then just not, we don't have heating or air conditioning anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah.
Oh,
So,
that must be nice.
well, it's I think it's like 70 degrees out right now. It's pretty warm, right?
It was actually pretty warm over here in Massachusetts this
Oh,
weekend, and
see,
we got to 30 degrees, and it was
30,
tropical. It's been a
really,
cold,
30 was the high?
pretty yeah, I think it like hit 32 maybe, or 35, somewhere around there was the high. But that's, I mean, we've been in single digits or negatives, below zero for all of January and most of February. It's been a pretty cold
Really?
winter. Yeah. But what
Oh,
we're gonna do
wow.
is we're gonna go right from freezing. We're gonna have about 3 weeks of nice weather, and then we're gonna go right into hot and humid in the summer. Which you're from Pittsburgh, you know how it goes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, it drops to like 40 degrees here and I'm cold. But yeah, just because I'm always I'm like cold. I'm just always cold. Um, so is there anything else that you would like to say about the future of architecture?
I guess I don't know. I would say we've mentioned Entree Architect a couple times. I think if
Yeah.
there's anyone here listening that's an architect or a firm owner, join Entree Architect. Right, join. This isn't, we don't get it. Michelle and I don't get any kickbacks or
No,
anything
we don't
like
get
that. But it's great. It would at least take part in the Facebook group, which is free. But from
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
if you join the network, you join the mastermind group. It's been a complete game changer for me in terms of running my firm. And I think the cost is like about around $1,000 for the year, which, $1,000 is it's not nothing, but if you break it down, it's like a cup of coffee a day. Right.
Yeah.
So, you can join a mastermind group if you're starting a firm or running a firm, and you can meet every week with other business owners, other firm owners, and talk about your business, talk about your clients and your proposals and your marketing and all that stuff. And everyone that I know that's part of Entree Architect has seen improvements in their firm. So
Yeah.
join
This is
Entree
more about
Architect.
how to run the business,
More about
right?
how to
If you
run
could
the
kind of
business.
like
Yep.
explain it,
Yep.
about the master and then the other groups you're kind of put into groups with that are focused on what you want to improve your firm, or is
Yep.
that it? Yeah.
Yep. And then they
So
have,
like, so
yep.
what are some of the group, like, the
Okay.
sole
So
practitioners group,
yeah,
right?
I'm in 3 masterminds with Entree Architect. I
Okay.
have one that's just general business focus. So we just talk about our firm business. Then I'm in another one that's focused on passive income. And then I just joined a third one that's architect as developer. And so, but there's also some of the other groups are there's one that's solely focused on profit. There's one that's focused on sole practitioners only.
Hmm.
There's a new one. Jessica Christensen is going to be the newest facilitator of the next group, which is launching here in March, and it's going to be for startup firms, so firms that
Okay.
are just starting. And there's a few other specialty groups out there as well, but they have monthly training, they have HSW credits, they have business coaches that come in every week. It's there's 4 of them, and there's every Tuesday afternoon they do a session um, for business training. It's just fantastic. So,
Hmm. And then Jeff Scott is like Jeff Eccles has
oh
those
yeah,
those challenges, that
Jeff
he
Eccles,
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
Jeff Eccles does the challenges. Jeff Eccles does every morning at 8:30 a.m. So it's 8:30 a.m. my time. So it's 5:30 for you out in California. But
Yeah.
there's a couple of
It's
California people that join in every once in a while. But it's
yeah.
he does the Java with Jeff, which is a morning mindset conversation. So it's all about sort of like getting your mindset right going into the day. So it's a nice little intro to um, getting your day started off on the right path.
Yeah. 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 Um, well, is there anything else? You've got your
Uh,
um you've got your YouTube channel.
yeah. Everyone
Yeah.
should go to N3 Architecture on YouTube and subscribe and watch the videos and I show a lot of sort of behind the scenes stuff, or I try to show a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I was actually just hired for a new custom home project, and the clients have agreed to sort of let me show the design process. So I'm going to be taking from, I'm just starting on the project, so you're gonna see everything from the initial site analysis all the way through when the house gets built. So I'm gonna take the
that sounds
YouTube channel
good.
along the
Yeah.
ways. They said as
Yeah.
long as they don't want to be on any videos, and as long as I don't give out any personal information, so I'm like, that's fine. So
I don't think I would want to be. I don't know. I don't think I'd want to have my
yeah.
meetings. I had one meeting. I had one meeting with the client. It was one was 4 hours and one was 3.5 hours. And I'm like,
Wow,
yeah, typically they're not like I've never had a meeting this long in my entire life. Like even for a huge project, I've never had
that's
a
a long
meeting that's
meeting.
this
Yeah.
long. That is a long time. And I had to kind of try, and then I kind of had to explain, like, okay, I typically don't. I mean, luckily we were able to figure out everything within like just a few meetings because
Yep.
they were that long. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that long.
That's
That's just
yeah.
way, yeah, that's like that's way too long of a time to be with anybody, really, to tell you the truth.
Oh man.
To be in a meeting with anybody, absolutely
Yep.
anybody. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And then let's see. We can probably do the closing now. Yeah, sorry about this, but that's a wrap for this episode. Remember, the materials we choose today shape the cities of tomorrow, with more North American cities moving away from high carbon, uh, short lifespan. Um, the products, sorry, in favor of sustainable, long lasting granite. The future of architecture is looking stronger than ever.
Yeah. Play the song.
Send 1,000 kilos of top, know what that means. Short-lived paper shed, it crack and they fade. Fans got strength with wings and some.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.